several, some going, some older than 2014. The last time we came to you for write-offs was in May 2020. We're a little early this year. We're trying to prep for our cut over to the new financial management system, and we want to clear out some of the older accounts. Even though we do propose that these be written off, we will continue to try to collect them either through our collection agent or working directly with the companies or government agencies that have these outstanding amounts.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to be clear, on page 2 of 119, so there are 120 accounts that you can specifically identify, 2 of which are government. Can you talk us through why GPA can't pay you or why GIAA can't pay you? Paragraph right underneath the list. They have money. Is there a dispute over whether it's a valid charge or what?
So many of these accounts are older that we're having a little bit of difficulty of finding the supporting documents. However, we continue to bill both. We have been billing the airport. We're in negotiations with them. We're hoping to make that part of the discussion. The same thing with GPA. We have submitted these amounts, but I think it mainly due to the fact that we don't have supporting documents that we're having a little bit of problem getting the collections done.
So, okay, and that's and it's really just those 2 accounts for $59,000. But I mean, we've had good management here, good management at GPA, and they're run by a great board. So can't GPA just say, "What the hell? I'm going to cut you a check for $45,000"?
Well, we'll continue to discuss this with
them. Copy of this at their work session.
Yeah. I mean,
No, seriously though, one of the things is, I see one of the bills for the airport, for example, is back in 2001, which precedes the CCU. And I don't know if we have the records for that, so I could see where back in the day, maybe they weren't keeping records as accurately as they should have, so that's a dispute. And like anything else.
My understanding is I guess when they did the move that there were some documents that were placed in storage and secure files that we're trying to find.
okay. But then you can identify 12,200 specific work done for GIAA and 25,000 specific work done for
Yes.
GPA, and we want to write it off. I mean, if we know we've done the work, especially GPA, what's the dispute? Like mow the yard for my brother, and he says, "I'll pay you $50."
Well, we continue to
$50.
we continue to bill them, and we haven't been successful.
Why don't they just pay you? I mean, are they violating some major accounting rule if they don't pay you, whatever the heck, $45,000 out of their $400 million revenue stream?
So, we have contacted most, like all of the accounts others, and a lot of the reply is show us the invoice.
Right, I'm just talking about GPA, at least GPA and even GIA. I mean, only because you even anecdotally described the work.
Right.
So we did the work. Sorry we don't have the paperwork, but we have enough paperwork to say it's $45,539 and $12,208, and we know what it was for. I mean, even if it's a partial settlement.
Right.
I mean, I understand the other 110. I mean, those are just accounts, right? The people could now be out of business. They don't live here anymore. You're never going to get it. But it struck me, and it's not a big number, but still on principle, especially a sister company. And you even know what you did. So, I mean, we can do a reserve for write-off because but I almost want to take out the government ones and give you the rest. Right, $1,563,000 or something like that.
Right. We'll continue to press for the payment, whether it's written off or not.
I concur with Commissioner Sanchez because, for example, the work that was done at Fidia, that was basically to provide the sewer line, which is not a full sewer line, but it's a hybrid, where it's got a sump pump and it shoots the effluent out. So GWA had to do that work. They should get paid for that. Now,
we agree.
Now, I don't know if there's something, I would wonder if there's something in the accounting that says that, once you pass a fiscal year or once you pass a certain time, then there's a stay because you've gone past you're barred because of statute of limitation of some sort. That one I can understand, too. There could be that case. But if they owe it, they should pay it. I mean, I'm with Simon, especially the sister company.
And it's
The
post,
airport-
it's post CCU. I mean, just even on principle, we would say, hey, look,
Yeah.
between you two
The one,
folks,
the
you got
one
a ton
that
of money.
preceded the CCU in 2001, I can kind of understand that one because we're not even sure what those funds were paid for or what the money was used for. But I agree with Commissioner Sanchez that the GPA and even the airport authority should pay for the ones that, if, we have some records that we can show them, we can make a reasonable case that work was performed. That's the key.
So we could still write off the rest. It'd be $1,544,000. We can do the quick math, but this says at least don't even write off the government and just go insist the GPA cut a check.
Okay.
And I like, as Miguel suggested, they're going to be greatly encouraged on Thursday to write a check for
12.
or make a good tell us why you shouldn't write the check.
$25,000.
Right, I'm with the chairman. I'm not aware of a statute of limitations on, exchanges between entities. There are statutes for other reasons.
There are statutes.
But this one, you
But
have,
I don't know. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
you have an amount. You know what it was for.
Supposedly you have some.
Yeah, you don't have the
substantiating documents.
paperwork, but everyone knows what it was for.
Okay.
And what is GPA telling you? Ha, no paperwork. I'm not paying you 45. I mean, that to me is a terrible attitude if that's their attitude.
Okay, I tell you what, I think you've heard enough.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez
Yeah.
wants to-
Yeah, those were my exact questions, is what exactly is the feedback from GPA? What was the rationale?
So my understanding is that we provided the statement to them requesting for the payment, and in the general response is, can we get a detailed invoice? Which we don't have. So we have a summary by month and year and a description of the work that was done. But other than that, we don't have, for instance, a work order that would support
So
that charge.
the time frame that's in the resolution now, it says, Guam Power Authority of $45,539 for work conducted between 2004 and 2016. So I can understand the 2004, but what is the excuse for 2016?
Again, it's the documentation to support the,
No documentation is
except for the statement.
But you have a statement,
Right.
GWA issue, and does it have an invoice on it and an invoice number? And they don't have a copy of it?
No, she doesn't have.
No, GPA.
They don't have the details.
But I mean, I get a statement from a vendor, I owe them, $300. I mean, it's, especially in this case, it's not like we invented it. So yeah, the paperwork's sloppy, but everyone knows the work was done and money's real.
What about the equipment rental? GIA, you guys identified the equipment that was rented. Does anybody else have this equipment?
This had to do with the well pullout. Like, I'm assuming it was for pulling up a motor from a well at the airport.
They utilize GWA equipment for it?
We did the work.
But it's their responsibility for the capital maintenance requirements.
It's their world.
Okay.
And they're also contesting it? And they're contesting it because of no invoice, no statement, no nothing?
We continue to bill them, and my understanding is that they've asked for supporting documents.
And we don't have any?
I think for the equipment
Yep.
charges, you don't necessarily maintain a rental.
Right, what would you,
So-
yeah, you're not in the equipment rental business, right? It's just
Right.
your internal cost, that's what it is, and you bill it out.
Right, so if it's a cost for the crane, if there was an equipment much cost for that, you don't necessarily have the backup for how you get to that rate.
Well, okay. But you have an amount.
So other than the ones listed in detail here, are there any other government agencies?
No, just those two.
Okay, so, I would be inclined to, make an amendment to the resolution to exclude these and just go and drop the hammer.
So you.
Cut 'em off.
So I think
Turn off their
Revise it
wa-
for the.
we should revise the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Take those out. Anything else on this resolution, Commissioners? Nope.
No, it looks
Okay.
straightforward.
Next.
The next resolution is 14 FY 2021, and this is relative to updating our overtime policy for exempt employees. Really what we want to do is get us aligned with recent amendments to the Fair Labor Standards Act and new criteria that was established January 1st, 2025. Yeah, and what this will also do is narrow the applicability of overtime that can pay to exempt declared emergencies, which follows our previous practice and was also included in the previous resolution, CC resolution that established the current policy. So if you were in agreement and pass this resolution, it will supersede the one that was established in 2010, resolution number 09 FY, which allowed pretty much open authority for exempt employees to
Earn overtime.
make overtime because of the personnel shortage at the time, manpower shortage at the time. I think we've overcome that, so our current situation is different from what it was in 2010. We want to align policy with the current Fair Labor Standards Act and narrow the conditions under which exempt employees would be eligible for overtime for emergencies, and so that's
Commissioner Limtaco.
Going back to the last, is the MOU between or any other this arrangement that you have as maintaining? Maybe you fine tune those and get them clear as who's paying for what and what those rates. I don't know if it's an MOU or you say you're just so that they're very clear going forward that if they ever cross this top 10, they know exactly what they're being billed for, and they agree to those terms and conditions on it, non-payment again.
Operating agreement with the airport, I think, is good. In terms of the responsibilities for who's responsible for what. For the other entities, I don't think we have necessarily an MOU. One we put forth with DPW, we asked specifically for their equipment rates, whether they're contracted or in-house. Is so that MOU is also clear. I don't think we have anything else. We don't have one in place, but we'll be drafting one so we can.
Okay. And so, like, when you do business outside an agency, right, you issue a PO, you go out to bid, you have a very formalized, a bit looser with intergovernment agency?
No, I think this type of work that's covered under these liabilities are, for example, if Port Authority has damage on their system, their own piping, which we assist with, then we would charge them just similarly like a contractor damages a line. We do the work, we keep track of what the costs are, the work order, and then we submit the invoice. Not part of a regular MOA or MOU, it's just kind of as the work or need arises, we assist, we bill you for our costs. So in those instances, using what our cost normally would be, but there's no structure.
There's no like a pre-approval set to the board saying, hey, this is what we estimate it's going to cost, and you need to approve it so that we can proceed with the work, get that approval, and then there's no haggling when they start getting the bill?
So typically not in those emergency situations. And to be fair,
Is it unreasonable to put something together that requires approval?
well, I think maybe the way we could handle it is if we get we had previously issued other rates and fees to the board for approval so that we could update them, and I don't think that passed. So there is discussion now about us visiting that, putting that together. Perhaps we can establish such rates and fees that would be charged under that, and then there would be no.
Thank you,
we
Mr.
can make that formal.
Okay,
Do you
thanks,
have one
Miguel.
on this current resolution?
I do, but
Did you wanna
anybody else have questions?
Oh, on the.
Yeah, I
No,
do.
he's moving on to the next one, so why don't you start?
I do have some questions regarding it. So the resolution refers to the Fair Labor Standards Act, and I know further down it's in regards to how much it will cost. You're actually forecasting that it'll actually save money to issue overtime to exempt employees.
To reduce the potential for that.
The availability.
Okay.
So if they're exempt, why are they paid overtime?
Why are
You don't
why are
get
you
overtime, right?
requiring
We
us?
don't,
Kelly doesn't get overtime, right?
no.
He does, or no? You don't get overtime.
So the previous policy established, that was approved by the board in 2010, established that because of the shortage of manpower, employees who would typically not be eligible, recognition of the extra work that they have to do, would be eligible. Not to say that they are in every instance, and I think I've been here.
Okay.
That policy
You're
is
gonna-
not necessarily aligned to the Fair
Resolution.
Labor Standards Act. And so that's why we're trying to correct.
So by aligning it where we don't pay exempt employees.
By removing exempt employees from applicability of overtime.
With the exception of,
What's in the Fair Labor Standards Act?
no, the
CTP?
typhoon the emergency.
Okay.
Typhoon emergencies, they also get overtime currently?
If,
Or I'm under FLSA.
so previously, if there was excessive work because of a typhoon
Natural
emergency
disaster.
or recovery, and it was reimbursable through FEMA, then they would pay them, and then we would get the reimbursement.
They'll pay them overtime,
Whether they.
if FEMA's
Okay,
going
so
to pay.
so our policy sometimes makes an exempt employee eligible and sometimes doesn't make it eligible? Because I'm with you, we need to standardize it, get it to where one or the other, and it's,
Right now, I think.
like I would never expect you to get overtime during any emergency. No, I mean, because
Unfortunately.
even under FLSA, you supervise, you hire, you fire, you don't.
That expectation with me is clear. That's not a problem.
Right. So as you go down the hierarchy of management, there are senior managers that hire, fire, and review. And I imagine that we say this manager, this manager, this manager, typhoon, whatever, you don't get overtime. We pay you, CPT, high salary, because we don't expect to put you on a clock.
Right.
And, hour 41, I get overtime. So I'm with you if you're trying to
Trying to roll it back.
better structure a overtime policy for what I would call in the private sector, my exempt employees, which generally are exempt, right? And they just, Francis and I don't get overtime. I'm sure you don't get overtime at your business when you're.
Correct. So we are trying to align it, that what's in front of you today will align it so that what we determined as exempt, which the list is included as an appendix, right?
Yep.
Will not be eligible for overtime, anything except for these emergency situations where the costs are recovered.
And right now it is. Right now it is. The existing policy allows for the payment of overtime to exempt employees, even outside
Yes,
the
right,
emergencies.
Exactly. And
Okay.
that's the part we're trying to correct.
Even outside the.
Emergency situations.
Natural disasters.
They could get paid. They are eligible for overtime even if it was an emergency right now. Currently.
Correct.
That's one
Not
of
to
the.
say that that is being applied.
Right,
or
right, it's not being
used,
applied.
but
We
it's
want to
just-
close the loophole.
We want to close the loophole, align it to the Fair Labor Standards.
Is there any other loophole we're closing?
Well, that's the other question I had, is this whole issue that we had when we went into the pandemic and the the emergency declaration.
Separate issue.
I know it's separate issues, but they're kind of one in this. You have another law that says that you're eligible for another set of pay, and you have this other law that says you're going to remove it in general, except for these emergencies, right? You're still going to be eligible for overtime, right? So I'm still unclear as to what applies to when. Would overtime apply if the emergency declaration applied? One supersede the other? How does that work? Because in a typhoon situation, it could be a declared state of emergency, right?
Right.
And then at that point, you'll be eligible for, what is it, double pay, right? I think the existing law states, I know you interpreted differently than GPA did, but there were some, that's what I want to...
Under the current personnel
rules and regulations.
Right. So those would, the current personal rules and regulations, they'll be modified based on the passage of this resolution or not, right?
No.
It will not. It will not be. Okay. So yeah, so that that you have those inconsistencies. It really just should be very standardized amongst both utilities, so they both apply it exactly the same way.
I think that there has been previous discussion and we're in agreement that overall the personnel rules and regulations
Should be,
thorough going over and revision,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not proposing that as part of this, but
Right.
we do.
to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You just informed me that it would take a little while. I get that. I just have one question on this specific resolution.
Could I just finish up?
Go ahead,
Mr.
go.
Chair? So if
Sorry.
if there is the existing law and the state of emergency declaration, right, that already provides for additional pay during these emergencies, do we even need to have the exemption? Didn't we just exclude the exemption altogether and just say exempt employees aren't eligible for any overtime, because in the event that there was a state of emergency, you have an existing law. Now, how you interpret that, we still need to figure out, right? But there's already existing law that establishes the eligibility for what would be classified as overtime, right? They're actually looking to save money by getting it off the books.
Yeah, we started this effort earlier and it got sidetracked, but
Makes sense, right, that they roll it back, but I'm just wondering how can we just make it consistent? Just removing the exemption altogether.
so that's a good question with regard to the personnel rules and regulations having a provision for emergency pay. Then there's also overlapping overtime during an emergency. So
Right.
both of those things apply, but in the personnel rules and regulations, I don't think there's a distinction.
But I think it's clear that from this particular board, no such thing. Employees,
Just do FLSA.
no overtime. Yeah, move on. I mean, I don't, when I read this thing, I'm just asking myself, why are we referring to abuse? It's something that we don't know about.
Says it right here. So it's not abuse. Leads me to think that we abused it, that's why we need to fix it.
Okay.
Then I'm just looking at it, that's the language as written to me. It implies to me that we did something. If we didn't, then take it out.
Take that language out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's, telling the public that we think we did something wrong.
And it would apply, it would suggest liability on our part.
But
Is there an issue with that?
Okay.
I mean, I want to make sure
I have
I'm
a
getting
comment.
this. If we just went to the private sector FLSA standard for paying overtime, is that what you're trying to do? And get rid of, I guess we have an inconsistency in our personnel policies?
Yes.
That what, now we say there's some exempt, they're non-exempt, and we created a list. And the list is okay, but, I mean, in the private sector, it's pretty clear who qualifies for overtime and who doesn't, and that's it.
So I think there was questions before as to who was exempt and who was not exempt. I think there was not, that was not to me definite and clear, and so that prompted the question, can I get an updated list after the Fair Labor Standards Act was amended? That's what started this, and then as I mentioned, we got sidetracked. The intent was to clarify, to align, so that there was no questions about who is entitled to, and I think that's ultimately where we want to get. The issue of during emergencies, whether it keep that or we take it out, I mean, that's a pleasure of the board.
Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So on page 12 of board books, we start the list of exempt folks, right? So like an inventory management officer, can they hire and fire the people? Do they hire and fire the people underneath them?
They're involved in the hiring.
Can they fire them on their own? Like in the private sector, since you're not supervising anybody, then you can get overtime. But if you are,
Well, that's like there's several exemptions, right? That would be classified as the executive exemption, right? The ability to hire and fire people. But then you also have administrative exemption, professional exemption, highly compensated employees.
that's a lot of exemptions.
There's a lot of exemptions, so it's
Can we simplify it to? But is that in FLSA?
yeah.
Yes.
You can see I don't have that many layers.
Yeah, not most businesses
My
don't.
laundry right now.
Most businesses don't. But, when you get into technical, that's what I was going to point out.
But like, how is an inventory management officer qualify for overtime? An emergency. First off, some emergencies, you don't even come into work.
I think what you're mentioning in this particular resolution, targeting a typhoon.
Yeah.
So what
So
exactly
I
is
guess
inventory
the instance or the practice previously is if during recovery efforts, everybody's got to work 20-hour days to, get parts of the system restored, so on and so forth. And that's
Issue
would be the
materials,
situation
get-
where, in order to get that work done and make sure that somebody doesn't walk away from their shift after they worked 8 hours, if the work that needs to be done. This is, I think that's the way it was applied and the rationale.
So with this proposal, would all these people that are saying exempt still be exempt?
Yes. They
Under
would,
all circumstances,
They're-
except that emergency.
except the emergency. And even, keep in mind that, yes, well, declared emergencies, right?
So we'll change that word.
Well,
So
That-
the
Go ahead.
approval is still required,
Right.
right? Management approval is still required.
two things. First off, I think there's a difference between natural disaster emergencies and other emergencies. And I would suggest that you clarify that and don't use typhoon because it may be earthquake that cause you a lot of problems. Unless I'm reading this wrong. That's one. Two, the other thing you need to clarify because what I heard and what I think was the practice in the past, it's a practice, it's not a law, is that when we do have a typhoon as a natural disaster, for example, because we're expecting FEMA to pay, we rush in to give overtime. That's not a law, that's a practice. So you need to verify that there is a law that says during a typhoon or a natural disaster emergency, you automatically get this pay.
So there is, in terms of the emergency pay, and there is a provision for overtime, regardless of whether it's an emergency or not.
In the law.
In the law and in the personnel rules and regulations. So,
Okay.
no, there has been conformance with that in all past practices.
Okay. Commissioner Santos.
Then you take out any reference to typhoon and just make that emergency a problem. Because the qualifier, it seems, is the governor making the declaration. Right. That's the qualifier.
Right.
And it triggers everything else. And I think, you brought it up, Mr. Chairman, we need to sit down and fix this.
Yes.
I think we're going to task the GMs let's get it done before the end of this. Otherwise, we're just gonna be more.
That's good.
We're gonna get to a resolution that's trying to fix the situation. Yet we haven't resolved, so if you put the work and say, needs to be done, get it done. And we all know what the end is gonna be, what it should look like. Still confused as to why we go to DOA to get permission. We're still having a hard time with that.
No, we need to write our own, yeah. No, no, no.
Because it's
Well, I thought
is it
we
just
had-
because it's a statute or
no,
existing?
No, I thought day one, when we were first grade, we didn't have anything. So the CCU adopted it. But the CCU can change, you
Yes,
can change it.
and that's the point.
We just after all these years, so it's not like we we don't go to DOA for permission. We just copied their rules and regs, and then our HR people and our admin people follow DOA.
Right.
And if the law changes it, we've absorbed it.
Let's fix this.
But yeah, I'm with you. Let's get our own that makes sense for us, and it's a good thing to fix.
Okay.
So if we're in agreement that we're going to fix the personnel rules and regs and get clarification on the DOE,
DOA.
rule or DOA rule, then can we just remove the exemption from this resolution for the exempt employees?
Will that work?
Okay, here we go.
And clarify, not take out typhoon, just
Yeah, just
emergency declared by the governor.
Yeah, we're just going to, well, no, you're going to take out that whole emergency except as its applicability to non-exempt, right? Which,
Yeah, correct. Yep.
okay.
Okay, so redo it
We'll
and
revise it.
send it out to us before the meeting on Tuesday so we
Yes,
get
sir.
to look at it.
And that actually might have to.
Yeah,
we
and
might have
any
to triple-
reference to
we
abuse,
even have to triple
take
A.
that out.
Right? Would
Okay.
we have to triple A when we amend our, right? So.
Oh, yeah.
That's good, so employees know, public
Yeah, yeah.
knows. so-
Oh, yeah, no,
So
no,
it's like
no.
you're saying, this is a project to
Yeah, no, I know, I
have
know.
done by the end of the year.
And fiscal year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with you.
because I want
Okay.
them
It
to.
gives them time
Can
to-
it,
No, I
Commissioner
mean,
Chalco.
So,
Yeah,
so just
question.
one follow-up on the non-exempt. Okay, I know we talked about this in a couple of times, but do we have an accurate and reliable hours tracking procedure for your non-exempt employees? Your non-exempt employees are hourly, right? They're submitting timesheets still manually, and someone's manually entering them. Why have we not moved to some sort of automated system of tracking the hours? Because when you talk about abuse in your resolution, if you don't have a systematic way of having a way for people to check in and check out or punch in and punch out, biometrically, or if they work from home or they're off-site, some sort of electronic way to say, I'm at work, that's subject to abuse because there's no controls. So, where are we going with that? Why are we still doing it manually?
Exactly the year GWA did have that time tracking system and then why it was abandoned. So we did at one time use the Chronos system from my recollection and through some of the documents I've read. As part of the E1 project, the mobility piece, our field workers that'll be working on work orders will have a time tracker. So the mobile app itself, as soon as they get to the job site, they'll hit start and then it'll track them until they hit stop for that particular work order. So we will have that functionality when we go live in May. However, for the rest of the operation, it's going to be more or less status quo, except that everything will be done digitally. So there won't be time sheets anymore. Everybody's going to have to log in to their computer or their tablet or their phone and say, I worked 8 hours today, and then log that. It wasn't built into the E1 upgrade. It's something that we've discussed implementing to have an actual time and attendance system that you're referring to. So it took second stage to the E1 upgrade. It wasn't incorporated. And so I think we're looking to do that in the future, but it's not on the radar at this time.
Okay, but I guess my question would be why? It's something that's every other private sector does with ease. Why is it so difficult? Why are we making it so difficult? It can't be expensive.
Something that was on the the agenda to do. It was the upgrade had the priority. And so if we would have incorporated it into the E1 upgrade, it probably would have extended out the timeline way beyond what we wanted to get to because of the expiration of the maintenance agreement.
Right, but, and I get that, and I appreciate that, but you don't have to integrate it. You could just go get a time and attendance system, a way for your employees that show up to work here to check in and check out. I mean, it's not difficult to do, and I'd be very curious to see, how the hours look if people aren't submitting their hours themselves. Anybody else have that concern, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Chopper.
What are we, 400 employees?
370.
Say round it up 400, you got another 400 at GPA. Cost per unit is going to be relatively. We change system at JC and we're on Ceridian. And even Francis Santos has to biometric into the system every single day, regardless of what your status is. I mean, imagine in our world where a doctor has to be in a biometric. They absolutely went crazy. You're absolutely right, Commissioner Taco. It is what it is.
It's a new normal.
Again, just study, go out there and find if it's E1 has a module, call it, find out what that costs versus Chronos and Ceridian.
Your savings may pay for this.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
sure we'll pay for
overall,
this.
because believe me, it's also on your phone because you can log in once you're in the footprint of the hospital. Log in that way if you want to use it that way.
Okay.
And it helps you even with your, when Simon's signing off,
Payroll is not a manual system.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also,
payroll is, you the supervisor have to agree that your employee showed up to work. And,
Just have one question.
I think we've got the framework now, once we get E1 to make, adding this on easier than it was before. But remember that before we got this going, it's over 20 years old. So
Yeah.
Okay.
we're working
But,
on
but,
it.
what, but what I'm
Commissioner
suggesting is
Jenkins.
you don't necessarily have to make it fancy, right?
Yeah.
You don't need the
Simple.
Ferrari, you just need, the Volkswagen
Simple and
version of it.
accurate.
But just curious, how many of the senior management in this room participate in the actual sign-off of these payroll sheets? All three of you. The highest compensated employees in GWA are actually have one step in a payroll process. Yeah. So I don't think you have the time for that. I don't think either of you have the time for that.
That's right. Okay. Okay. Let's move to the next resolution.
We're a grouchy group today.
So
We haven't said yes to anything yet.
2.3 on the agenda is a joint resolution that's going to be presented by GPA at their joint.
You'll be ready
at the
on
work
Thursday. No problem.
So
Okay.
2.4, Resolution 16 FY 2021 is the other
It's the
joint
resolution the commissioner asked
resolution
for.
which the CCU asked for at the last meeting regarding confirmation of management's decision on the pandemic pay policy. Same logic that was discussed in the last meeting where the report is presented here in a concise form to cover the board's confirmation of our decision.
Chairman is ready to word back from Chairman?
No.
So we're going to just follow DOA, like,
No.
now be it resolved,
The OPA.
confirm and approve GWA GPA determinate to follow and apply the required emergency pay provisions of the DOA personnel rules and regs. Am I reading that right? So that's our result, right? We're going to follow DOA's. There was confusion, right? We had the governor in her declaration, she was silent on, she didn't rescind the DOA policy. So both managers were forced to make a decision during an emergency, right, and made a call, right? And we're ratifying that, but on a going forward basis, we also want to establish a protocol that protects, that is clear to you and our employees, clear to us, right? That's what this resolution is doing, right?
Okay.
Well,
Right?
resolution is confirming our past action. The clarification on what we do going forward, I think, is part of what we what we previously discussed about rehashing, coming up with our own personnel rules and regulations and incorporating.
So this is just specific to us ratifying the COVID decision-making last spring?
Understanding of what the
And
board
then,
requested at the last
correct,
meeting.
and now you have another project that you're going to work on, the personnel rules and regs, and getting that in a better shape. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Joffrey.
So, does this resolution impact anybody else that may have been eligible that wasn't subsequently paid again, in applying this? And
I don't believe so, sir.
so,
I'm not,
okay, but I mean, we're not making a decision today, right? So we could just get clarification on it. Is there a liability to GWA that says, oh, you guys passed that resolution, I didn't get anything, so am I eligible for the DOA emergency pay? Or if you didn't pay it out in full according to it, because it is double pay, right?
no, I don't think that is a possibility. I think everybody that was compensated from the time that the emergency was declared and everything was shut down to the time when
You lifted the that
closure of
applicability?
government offices was lifted, all of that was handled the same way it would have been handled for any other emergency, and everybody that should have been compensated was compensated. There are no additional liabilities that I foresee coming up.
Okay. And I would just suggest that maybe you need to make that resolve a little clearer. We're specifically talking about this current emergency.
Yeah, maybe.
So don't say during the declared emergency, specify during the declared emergency of COVID-19 or whatever language. Doesn't.
Yes, from that
Yes.
date to this date.
Yeah.
Very
I'm just
clear
saying-
on the
yeah,
timeline.
Yeah, let's make sure that that's what we're talking about, just this timeline. We're not talking about future or doing anything else, because you're going to redo the rules and regulations. Okay?
And then, Mr.
Good.
And then
Commissioner Sanchez.
I apologize to Miguel. I bet you sent us the AG opinion of May 14th, 2020, but if you don't mind, you just send it
Sure.
out again. I just want to read
Resend
it.
it.
That's all.
No, I got it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
just
sure I have
resend
it
it.
too somewhere in my,
Yeah, it's in email heaven. Okay?
we're not always allowed into heaven.
We're not in on heaven.
We're not allowed in heaven yet.
Okay, that does the issues for decision. Your GM summary, do you have something to tell us?
Just the usual stuff. If you'd like to go through it, I can try to.
Sure.
On our production for February, we had 95 of 120 wells operating, 28 days in February for production, 35.3 million gallons a day, deep wells, 0.24 MGD for Springs, 2.2 for Ugam, under 1 MGD. Production of 38.8 MGD over the month. In total, slightly less than the previous month, so reduced production as well as we can manage.
Okay, we have a question. Commissioner Vanchapa.
Sorry to go backwards again, Miguel, but in regards to the employee pandemic pay determination, by the passage of Resolution 16 FY 2021, and just going back to the first resolution, right? If you're going to follow the DOA guidelines in reference to the first resolution, how would those two work? If we kept that one specific emergency related eligibility for overtime for exempt employees, how would that work in conjunction with this? Because you're saying you're going to pay them against the DOA guidelines, but then you would still have that overtime eligibility in the first resolution. You know what I'm saying? And I know we already clarified that, but I didn't realize this was going to come as well today. So now I'm thinking that if you actually accept the DOA guidelines, why would we even want to have that exemption for the exempt employees for emergency? Okay. But wouldn't that make them eligible for both? So you get overtime plus pandemic pay? So you get overtime plus double pay? That pandemic period?
The time and a half.
But only for the hours of 40, not, so if you, for example, don't get 2 times 1.5, get 1 times 1.5.
Of the 2 times.
But they're both to address the same issue. You're working more, right, during this time period when other people may not be, right? You're forced to.
Or you're working.
You're forced to.
No.
Sometimes the double pay is, you and I are, go fix a leak, a sewer leak, get in a truck together, like COVID was a good idea.
But that's probably the non-exempt, right? And I don't have any issues with that, right? I'm not trying to say that the people that are actually out there working and pulling the overtime, which, you know, they've already, in that first resolution, they've addressed. I'm just concerned that there's 2 sets of pay associated with, you know, having to work over your 40 hours.
So does
It
DOA
seems
have
as though you're eligible for both.
Does DOA have an overtime criteria that's different than?
They're
Then,
both
right.
contained within the personnel rules and regulations, just in different sections.
Right.
But under DOA, over 40 hours you get overtime, right? SLA, right?
Okay.
Is there anything different?
I know
To me,
we.
FLSA dictated what DOA ended up adopting. That's sort of a standard. 40 hours, over 40, you get overtime. Wherever you work. As long as you're not exempt.
I didn't mean to get you off track, but it just highlights we do need to resolve it. But we already took care of, you know, removing the OT exemption for the exempt employees on the first resolution. So we'll clear it up.
Okay, going back to your management report, I've been wondering, I know the sales of big house has gone down because consumption's down with like a certain segment of our market, right? The tourism segment,
Wastewater.
you know.
Or wastewater revenue.
Well, is it water or wastewater?
It's wastewater on the commercial side, hotels.
Yeah, I know, but how about the water consumption?
Consumption is down in the commercial
Water,
rate classes
okay,
for water.
for water, and that.
Residential ticked up,
Okay,
and government has either stayed steady or ticked up in certain instances, but there's not been a
okay. But because the tourism businesses have gone down, their wastewater revenue has also gone down
right,
proportionally.
right.
And so therefore, the water pickup on the residential hasn't made up for that.
That's correct,
Okay.
because it's flat rate.
Yeah.
Not
so it's a flat
volume-based.
rate. Volume rate. Okay. Okay.
So what I think, Mr. Chairman, when Miguel gets to it or when he's done, one conversation I'd like to at least throw out the board in the working session, the governor has indicated some willingness to assist with revenue loss to agencies from the $660 million she's getting from the Biden assistance. And I know for a fact that he mentioned it to me, and Andy Gale mentioned it to me, that he's looking at the revenue loss of GSWA, an autonomous agency under the PUC, and all that stuff, whether our team should reach out to the governor, her team, and document, that's what you're kind of going at. We're aware of a revenue loss caused by COVID, primarily from the impact on tourism and the significant drop in wastewater revenue. And in October of this year, the next phase of our 5-year rate plan is supposed to kick in. When it was originally filed, no one knew about COVID, so the revenue expectation was higher. Now we have actual COVID, and then the PUC put on even more requirements of Miguel and the team to document and justify. But just from our vast experience in rates, there was a big number, I thought, or enough of a number that would impact the October 1 proposed rate adjustment that is being worked on by management under the last PUC order. And if that increment was available from the 661 of the Biden money, and if the governor can be convinced to help provide that to GWA, it could, and in offline discussion with management, they were thinking about this, they're already beginning to look at, what was the impact on COVID on the revenues. And if it makes the next rate increase higher because of the lost revenue, which isn't going to come back by October 1, you're not going to get tourism back by October 1, so it's going to even continue. There might be an argument we can make to the governor saying, help us with the next rate increase, replace our lost revenue from tourism, and so we don't have to charge that to ratepayers, because Miguel has to raise money in the next, we've got the CIPs, we got our plan, we got the new court order. And none of us envisioned COVID 2020 when the original 5-year plan was adopted. The PUC approved year one,
and
right?
2.
1 and 2, and then said, I'm not going to give you any more subject to study, and then COVID hits. So COVID is going to exacerbate anything else that the studies might also reveal. But we can isolate what did COVID do to GWA in FY 2020? That's a number I know Tolling and you can come up with. You can figure it out and tie it specifically like the chair said. I mean, here's hotel revenue. I mean, that's clear as can be as to a sector clearly affected by COVID, positive revenue impact that's going to require a higher rate increase on ratepayers unless we can get some help from the governor to replace that lost revenue. Similar, I believe she's thinking about assisting GSWA, who's got a same revenue challenge because of COVID. And I've heard informally that she may be looking at assistance. We should also articulate our needs, calculate and articulate our needs, see if she can assist us, because that's going to help you with the rate plan that you got to submit to the PUC for the next series of rate adjustments. So with that in mind, I was going to suggest that management reach out to the governor and her team.
I think we should reach out to the governor. I just want to caution us. The rates that we were looking at, even if tourism had remained strong, were rates that were going to go pay bonds, which we were bringing in to do all these projects. We're still going to need to do the bonds. We're still going to need to do all the projects. So there may be some opportunity to soften the rate impact, but there's still going to be a rate impact.
Oh, no, I agree. But,
Yeah, okay.
But
No.
Yeah,
So with that said, I agree.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully that's where they're working.
because the rate impact is going to be greater now that we've had COVID than what was projected. So all we're asking for is bias back to what we
Soften.
thought we would make.
I think
Soften it. Well, I think we're all saying the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this is a rare opportunity where the governor may
Where
have
she
some funds.
seems to have funds.
And she may
yes.
have some funds, and she can directly help.
Yeah.
She's really helping the ratepayer. Right? I mean, we
At the end of the day, it's the ratepayers, because
Right, and-
we don't have any money of our own.
Yeah,
All our money's ratepayer money.
yeah. So
We exist for the ratepayers, and they pay for it.
if management can put that on their list of yet one more thing to add to your list, let's explore the possibility with the governor of receiving some financial assistance for GWA to buy down or reduce the impact of COVID on the next series of rate increases. And especially with the expectation that COVID's not going away on the revenue side for a while.
Okay,
We'll do that.
okay.
Moving on,
We need to make sure that, because things get a plan.
Yep.
yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Moving on, page 24, the distribution for pump station operability was 96%. So we're making headway there. On page 25, the tank levels, you can see we did have some issues maintaining reservoir levels towards the end of the month with some wells going down and resulting losses and from main breaks. We were struggling a little bit. Those wells have since been repaired, and the breaks obviously were repaired, and so we're back up in, as of now, March, pick those levels back up, but we did dip for a little bit below what we would normally see at 50 to 60.
Question, Choco.
Miguel, what's a critical level?
When we start to get down below 30%, in the south, we artificially keep more of our reservoirs low because there's a remote area, and if you fill it up too high, the water gets enough for fire reserve with the anticipation that there would be development.
It hasn't
Materialized,
materialized,
so
yeah.
The south numbers are typically a little lower than the levels in the north, and we feed fairly from north to south. So the north numbers will always be higher. So if we get below 50% on the north, I'm a little concerned. 35% in the south, I'm also.
But you had a tough February, man. Looks like you had a tough February.
On the wastewater side, page 26, lift station pump operability was at 90.6%, a slight improvement over month. Still have some that we're working. And sewer cleaning fell short of our 5-month target. Breaks that were happening in the court order unit off to assist with main break repairs. Pages 27 through 28, just, sorry, 30 indicate the areas in Harmon and Dan Hansen said that we did cleaning. 31 wastewater treatment. 7 million pounds of sludge at a cost of 100 for the month of February. Numbers are about consistent. The flow numbers, wastewater treatment flows, are consistent with the previous month at about 11 MGD average daily flows for all treatment plants. On the asset management side, the numbers remain consistent. Corrective maintenance, preventive maintenance, 34 corrective maintenance. Of our preventive overall have been 8% of units. On to 34, just an update on the one Guam issues. We do have an inspection coming up on Tuma Maui in April or May, depending on the Navy's schedule. The license does expire in May. We're working with the Navy to do that. We continue to be a licensed strategy that we're pursuing, and the Navy is open to is extending the term more than the license. And we're also looking to capacity that we're allowed to pump that in the license agreement to match what's on the regard to Navy support for our OEA projects, still trying to get the NGLA monitoring well expansion, the new wells. We're still trying to get that awarded. As you know, we had a contractor who submitted a bid. They withdrew that bid, and we're now having to bid that out again. So we've not signed the temporary construction easements. We have a 1-year sale date on those.
And there, Miguel, is there a bid bond associated with that, or a certain amount of percentage that they forfeit when they pull out of these bids?
There is a bid and performance bond. In this instance, we did not withhold the bid bond, primarily because the reason why we couldn't ink the deal was the funding issue that we had on the grant side on our part. no fault. The other issue with regards to the monitoring wells that we're working through with One Guam is the ongoing sustainment and maintenance costs and monitoring costs and how we're going to spend those. So we do have a meeting scheduled this week with the Navy to try and get to resolution and then brief you on that next month. A couple of the other issues, we are still waiting on the Marine Corps base to submit service application, but we are anticipating that they're going to become a customer for more than what was previously thought for some of their forest enhancement work. And then we are moving forward with developing the strategy framework, upcoming those projects for us to work on. One Guam, we have 2 high priority projects, 5 medium priority projects that departments, Navy partners, and GWA sat down and agreed. And finally, just on other business for One Guam, we're still coordinating on the potential diversion of wastewater from the Navy base for them to become a customer at the Agate Arena wastewater treatment. A lot of coordination that needs to happen there with regards to anticipated future flows, so we're working. We have one issue with AG1 and the water line, trying to locate that and secure it. Discovered that the water line that runs from AG1 into our district runs overland, and there's no maintenance road, so we're evaluating options with the Navy on how to. Moving on to page 36, just court order summary. No changes there. We're still at 98.9%. Items is ongoing. We have new SSOs that we have to report to US EPA in the month of February, mostly related to fats, oil, and grease. We did have one that price and track down that source and get that. Land acquisition summary, we did have some movement on some of the properties. Sumo and PD for those tank projects. Still trying to follow up about those issues. For the airport, movement on that, other than we're still waiting. For the sliver we need to access the airport tank on 10A side. Aspen Springs, there's been some movement on the biological state. Ending on this, not the only project that's one or two of the tank also being.
Now, can you give us a summary of what's in people on the elevate them to? Otherwise, it's just going to sit there. We're having a lot of issues that we push them to get that and the leadership. That's what we're moving on it. So.
Page 39, just the leak repair backlog, we're still down in 20 range, which is where we want to be. Remaining slides summarize that, or summarize the leak efforts, and on page 42, CFO can provide the financial review.
Colleen?
Telling before you go on, or maybe, are you going to talk about receivables? We currently are still not disconnecting people for non-payment, or have we changed our policy?
The two general managers were supposed to give us an update on where they were going to go. I gave them until the meeting to put their.
The big meeting or this meeting?
The big meeting. The meeting on.
Actually, thoughts now that we can share it, we just didn't
Okay.
get into the slides, but
Okay.
Yeah, and then, we'll give you feedback, and then you got Tuesday.
Yeah.
did give you previously a very detailed presentation that Chris worked on. We did suspend disconnections about actually a year ago to the date on March 16th.
Yeah.
Since then, we've made considerable effort to provide alternatives to our customers, including contactless payment methods, drive-through window payment service, extended and deferred payment, including the payment plans, which in outreach, increase the length of the payment plans and extended plans to non-residential accounts. And wishes there, and we waive credit card limits for non-residential payment. In that previous presentation we provided, we also gave you detailed status of current efforts and the results, residential and commercial accounts receivable, and the trends for pre and post COVID-19 accounts receivable. So we discussed at that time what remaining steps were necessary, and first of that being to determine or propose a date to restart connections. And GWA feels that it would be good to start sooner rather than later. We don't want to delay too much, especially if it is for residents and ratepayers to start to see stimulus in that used to catch up on their accounts. So we're proposing May 15th. That gives us 2 months to do extensive outreach and try to refine what coordination we've already done with Department of Administration and the front office on aiming to assist customers that may be able to take advantage of the rental and utility assistance program that's already funded. Although it's not necessarily been launched yet, we understand that they're looking at an April 1st rollout, and so we've done some initial coordination, prepared release forms that customers could use to, they are going to apply. They could sign the release forms, and then urges would be provided directly from us to DOA. Their urges paid. So we've already started on that. We would continue to support them with whatever additional documentation requirements, coordination there might need to be to avail ratepayers of that utility assistance. We would also continue our outreach for payment plans with direct customer contact, as we have been doing, and our social media outreach, update our website to include information and contact forms for get into a payment plan with us. And we would also provide direct mailers with an informational flyer, bills that go out the next 60 days to encourage people to get on payment plan if they are they're behind, and notifying them that we will be resuming actions. But we would also start coordinated outreach with any other assistance programs that might be forthcoming. Homeowner assistance programs, so similar to rental, but have to pay mortgage, might need assistance. Once that program, we would outreach. Then work on prioritization of the accounts would be subject to disconnection based on such criteria as whether they tried to make it or whether they have one and broken it. So first ones that we develop a prioritization that be impacted by COVID-19. the pandemic.
Commissioner Talk.
Yeah, Miguel, was GWA asked to provide any feedback on Bill 79-36? That was introduced by James Wellen. It's an act relative to the establishment of the Guam Home Energy Assistance Program to assist qualified families with utility payments and energy costs.
I don't recall receiving any request for testimony on that.
I don't think the public hearing has happened yet. I would just assume they would have contacted you for your support, but it was introduced, so you might want to reach out and provide your support to it. I think it goes to address what you were just referring to, but in actually in a bill format, utilizing that same funds rather than hoping the other government agency will participate. So I think it looks to actually fund the program through those federal funds.
Okay, we'll look at it.
And the only comment I would have is, when you do your rollout on the communication part, I think one of the things that I think is important to stress is that if you have a payment plan and you're sticking to your payment plan, you won't be disconnected on May 15th.
Right.
Okay, make sure that's highlighted. That way people know that they come in, sit down with you, work out a payment plan, as long as they stick to that payment plan. And if they get assistance from some program, they can speed up their payment, great. But as long as they stick to that payment plan, they will not be disconnected. If they violate the payment plan, they will be subject to disconnection on May 15th. Anybody who doesn't pay starting on May 15th, they're subject to disconnection because they haven't come in and talked to you. Kind
Yes,
of
sir.
clear. Okay. Commissioner Sanchez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at this point, you're setting a date, right? May 15th, 2021, yeah? I guess we'll wait for GPA, but would you happen to know whether GPA is adopting a similar time frame?
I am unaware.
Okay.
I don't know that they're as in a hurry as we are. I think in terms of our relative financial position, we're probably hurting a little more than they are.
Yeah. I mean, your piece is a revenue piece, almost more than a collection piece, because you are collecting what revenue you are billing. But when you can't send the Hyatt Hotel a sewer bill like you used to, and I can see when Tallinn gets back to the revenue, you've dropped some months as much as $1 million in revenue. So you've got your receivable problem. You've got a problem with sales at this point more than you have one with collections, because you're still hitting 95, 97%. So I mean, so one of the other pieces is, again, the ratepayers of Guam have done actually a very good job of paying their bills, and as you
For the
said,
most part.
right, and Miguel, as you said, we know we want to strike. This is good information to put out now because people are getting checks. They're going to get a bunch of checks, and that they continue the same attitude and approach that they've done for the past year, keeping our collections at 95, 97%. There are going to be some folks that will struggle, and but by setting a date, you sort of remind everybody, okay, this is really happening. I just got my EIP or my PUA and my FPUC or whatever the heck they're going to get, and I better make sure I pay my bill. And so we want to keep that going out. So on Tuesday, you're not asking our permission. You're telling us what you're going to do. You're informing us what you're going to do, right? You're not asking our
operational decision.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So when people ask us, what is GWA's plan? We will say management has this is the plan that they've given to us, and we will help with the outreach. We'll help communicate to people, and you already have on your list a good outreach, and the last outreach seemed to work pretty well because you were collecting, but this is good, and we've set a date. So I imagine with GPA, we need to ask them
We'll find out where they're at.
what's your date, but GWA is setting an initial date to begin disconnections on May 15th, 2021. Okay.
Go ahead, Talinga, you have anything else? Wow.
Green every month. That's
February's
good.
nice.
Green every month is good.
This is just
Look at that
a
revenue.
picture of revenue and demand for water and wastewater.
So, Mr. Chair and Tolling and Miguel and colleagues, we had talked about this outreach to the governor, right? You can see that prior to COVID, March 20, we were hitting 8.6 million monthly revenue. You can see lots of months where we were 500,000 to 600,000 below. Christmas, December, big tourism, big everything. We were down $1 million in revenue, right? So that's, and we're collecting that money, but we're not billing. Our revenue was severely impacted. So, I mean, just the
Our
quick
sales,
our sales are, our revenue.
our sales.
To me, revenue is sales. The collection is cash, right?
Right.
I mean, they're not, they're related, but you need the sales to bill in order to collect. And you're billing less, so you're going to collect less. But you do the math, it's running almost $500,000 a month.
We did, we compared post-COVID against our current revenues for the commercial and hotel class, and the first estimate is about 20 million for the year in lost revenues.
From March to now.
Right.
Well, better get in line with that 661. That's a big number, but if without that revenue, your rate increase
Right.
is going to be huge. So we need to reach out to the governor, and we have that wonderful free federal money, and if it can help our ratepayers.
It's not a big number in comparison to everything else she wants to do.
Build a hospital.
She'll see it that way. Okay,
She's giving half to the hospital. She's not buying
that's
yours.
what I mean.
She's building a new one. Yeah. But she's got EIT, but they've got EITC freed up. They've got $60 million a year in EITC.
Yeah, the new building with the same problem.
It's a management problem.
Provider relief money, was they just went back and said, well, what's your revenue loss? Clearly short. Thank you very much. And
Yeah. So, I mean, a $20 million impact is huge, and if the governor can help us help our ratepayers, I'm sure she'll be open to it. I mean, and if you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So maybe by Tuesday, give us a nice, pretty solid summary of the number you might request from the governor, and put the letter together, or a letter for the chairman, however you want to do it, and ask. And
All they can do is say no. Yeah.
And she seemed willing to help two autonomous entities, GSWA and the port. So, yeah, and we're autonomous, but we clearly got punched in the nose by COVID tourism. I mean, there's no question about that. So,
Okay.
do you need a FPUC and pool for
Sure.
GWA?
Commissioner Mchako,
Are we done though?
are we done? Are you
Well,
done
so
with your
the
findings?
so the rest of the slides are just
Okay. Not related to
show
finance.
by customer class.
Okay, is there anything else?
So
You're done? Okay. Commissioner Mchako, you want?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just wanted to bring to the Commission's attention, I got a call from a ratepayer, Mr. Antonio Garrido, regarding one of GWA's infrastructure issues on Route 16. I brought it to the GM's attention, and he has taken the lead on it and was very proactive in working with the customer to try and come to a resolution. But the main thing is there's a manhole cover on Route 16, and every time the commercial traffic drives by, it just makes a incredibly loud noise, and his house is right off the road. So thank you, Miguel, for addressing the issue, and with Mr. Garrido. Thank you.
Miguel has that issue all over the island. He has, manhole covers that don't fit properly. Yeah, well, I think that's what caused the problem originally. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Miguel, do you have anything else?
The only other thing that I had was we did conclude our, I guess it would be their third workshop with the PUC's consultant on the analytical studies. So
how's it looking?
We can give you an update on where we are. It doesn't have to be long. There's 50-some slides here, but I don't have to go through all of them.
No. Give us the big
Only 5
picture.
minutes. Only 5 minutes.
Okay.
Military woods as well.
Sure.
Body line up front, finished.
There you go. And then pass it out.
Okay.
So
Or
just,
email it.
just
Okay.
to give you a refresher on what we anticipate for the timeline, the analytical studies are due at the end of March. There are 7 analytical studies, all of which are listed here: demand forecasting, water loss reduction, cost of service, affordability and rate design, alternative capital financing,
yes. We all
capitalized
pay for it.
labor, and the septic tank elimination
We always pay.
analytical studies. So draft
Gotta pay
reports
to
are
get your rates.
expected. Some we already have, and some we're expected within the week. In April, we intend to go over these with you in detail, go over the recommendations of each of the analytical studies, and then present the rate application model, which is same thing that we've used before, but now it's on steroids. We essentially started from scratch, built in all the same filing requirements, and put together the model such that all the outputs from the analytical studies will flow directly into the model, and then
And you can
different
play with it.
scenarios can
Yeah.
be tested.
Perfect.
And then they come up with proposed rates. So all of that will be given to you in a detailed presentation in April, and then in May we would submit the comprehensive review and update package to the PUC for the 5-year financial plan, which is essentially
remaining-
justifying the remaining
last 3
years
years.
of the 5-year
Okay.
plan. And then we anticipate that there would be a PUC hearing and rate order in August.
Miguel, are you, in terms of legal logistics, is the CCU approving the remainder, the new 5-year rate plan that will emerge from all this analytics?
Yes.
That's what we
right?
propose to put forth.
Yeah.
to
So
you
we're going to have to
in
take
April.
action in May, just before we send it to the PUC. So,
Either in April or
or when you're ready. But I just want to remind myself and our
Sure.
colleagues that we
Yes.
play a role first. You're not. Yeah, whatever you say, but I recall that we approve all of these before, to give you we authorize you to
file the rate
petition,
plan.
with the PUC, the amended rate plan. So
Okay.
we'll have to do that homework with you in April. And there'll be one for us so we can authorize whatever we're going to authorize. Okay, great.
So just in addition to the one that's last, the other guy that did the so-called model to get us in the rate.
yes.
Legal.
That's because the PUC came back with their laundry list. Well, they said, show me how you're going to fix leaks, show me how you're going to do this, show me how you're going to do that.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, for this.
Yeah, we have to justify the,
And what? No, I mean, take that guy and take this one.
We pay for everything. That's the way it's set up.
This schematic just kind of shows the interaction between all of the analytical studies and all of the studies provide outputs that determine what the revenue requirements are. That revenue requirement goes into the cost of service analysis and the rate design. And out of that,
yep.
Yeah,
Oh, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I've seen these. Yeah. But this is what Rothstein is also doing for us, right? He's building this model for us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And he's managing kind of all of these analytical studies to make sure that everybody's on time, all of their inputs and outputs are coordinated with the rate application model.
So
That
we're
once all of this comes together, 7 studies at one time, we're not frantically trying to make sure they all work together.
So we're finally retiring the Georgetown model that was created at the PUC when he and I were there, that we've been using forever. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see they're the consultant, right? So you're going to end up with a model that we and they both like.
Something we can give out.
Connecticut, Georgetown.
There are details on each of the analytical studies, including the cost of service. I tried to keep these slides just at the higher level, but there's a lot of them, and I don't know if the board wants to go through them. So if you prefer, we could PDF the presentation and then email it to you for your perusal at your leisure. And then if you have any questions on it, I can try to answer those at the Tuesday meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually going to sit down and get the model.
We'll start the briefing.
The intention is to have that done, but it won't happen before we finalize all the analytical.
But at least you're briefing us on where we're at.
And
Yeah,
we've had
that's good, yeah.
three workshops now, presenting all of these. The initial workshop was to go over the approach. Second workshop to show them what progress we've made since the first one and address their questions. And that third workshop was just held over the last few days. With Georgetown is being kept apprised of what we're doing, and their questions been addressed, and a lot of the questions that they asked will be answered by the detailed reports.
Good.
But the analytical
Two of the 7 reports are being done by GWA. Willie Magdalena from Finance did the capitalized labor one, and Mo McDonald is doing the septic tank elimination study.
But the other studies are done by GWA contractors.
Right.
All of the 7 are done.
GWA.
No.
GWA staff has been supporting all of the studies as they've progressed, providing guidance, providing data, clarifications on what processes are. But subject matter experts in each of the analytical study areas hired specifically so that we could address the detailed questions, issues that George raised in the rate application process. Went through initially.
This is in addition to Rothstein? These are other experts?
No.
Yes.
Yes,
So
there are some.
the people that are preparing, for example, the cost of service analysis, the same 2 folks worked under Brown and Caldwell for our last cost of service analysis.
Yeah.
So they're already familiar with our.
And Georgetown's okay with the methodology and all that? We're just going to have Brown and Caldwell update the
We
COS?
gave Georgetown the opportunity to review the scope of work for the cost of service analysis prior to us signing the deal with these consultants. They didn't provide any feedback. We moved forward, and then we gave. So far, they've not taken exception to methodology that we presented to them. So all of them are really good industry recognized professionals in their areas of expertise. I think it's been to our benefit because it makes the conclusions that they come up with bulletproof, and it's going to show.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
What we've agreed to in the stipulation just isn't going to cut it for what we need to get all of these.
Okay. Is there anything else?
We'll send the PDF of this
Sure.
tonight, and you guys can have it. And then if there are any other questions, we'll answer them on Tuesday.
Okay, move to adjourn. Is there a motion? Okay, second. We're adjourned.
I love rate cases. Multivariable equations.